Have you ever wondered how you could adopt an Olympian's mindset? Have you ever wondered how you could get into the mind of an Olympic athlete? Well, I might have the solution for you today. I am delighted to introduce you to Andy Turner. Andy is a 3 times Olympian, European, and Commonwealth champion and world medalist. Andy helps busy executive achieve a bulletproof Olympic mindset through his very carefully designed program called Everyday Olympian. I couldn't be more excited to welcome Andy to the show today. Andy, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Delighted to have you. Andy, I wanted to jump straight in. I love all that you've done and achieved both in the sporting world and now with business executive. I wonder if for the time being we could start off with your unique professional skills and how you became an athlete.
Yeah, so I was very sporty as a young child. Athletics wasn't my main event. I was a footballer, and I was pretty good. I got scouted by a professional team in England. Ended up playing at Wembley a couple of times, which is big for a young boy. And then as I got older, my school would offer lots of different sports, and athletics was one that they were quite focused on. So I would take part in sports days and various other events, and I always did pretty well. And then from there, just joined a local team and then kind of set my targets on particular races throughout the year and trying to kind of climb the ladder, so to speak. And then when I was 16, I won a competition called the English Schools. And it's the biggest event you can do for a schoolboy. And then from that, I got picked to represent England. And that was my first time representing my country. So massively proud moment for myself. And then from there, I set my targets onto, becoming the best I could be. And, it took a long time. It took me kind of 7 or 8 years to kind of really kind of become a good athlete. And I made my first ever Olympic team when I was 24. So bit of a late starter compared to other athletes. But, I got there in the end.
And perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about how you decided to go for hurdling specifically. What was the appeal to becoming a track and field athlete?
I have a brother who's 2 years older than me, and I always just seem to follow what my brother did. And maybe it's sibling rivalry. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I wanted to beat my brother at everything. So he took up the hurdles. He decided that was the event that he was the best at. So I just wanted to beat my brother. So I decided that I was going to be the hurdler. But the problem was when I was a young boy, I was I was a bit naughty. I didn't really pay attention to my coach, to teachers, to parents. My brother was the complete opposite. He was perfect, the model student, the model pupil, the model athlete. And so we went to this first English schools together, and he ended up coming fourth in the final, meaning he was the fourth quickest in the whole country for his age. And I came dead last. I came absolute dead last. And I was gutted. And that's kind of why I decided to, really make a change and start to really focus and stop messing around, I suppose, and concentrate more. And things started to happen as soon as I did.
So would you say that you were perhaps the most competitive out of the two?
I think at the time we were both very competitive, but as we kind of got a little bit older, he kind of decided that maybe it wasn't for him. But I got a taste of that competitive edge. What I liked about athletics is that I was accountable for my performance. So if I had a good race, I did well. If I had a bad race, I did badly. Whereas if you're in a football team and you have a bad game, you've still got 10 other players around you who could carry you. But I like to be accountable for my performance, and that's what I really kind of thrived off, and that's what really excited me, and that kind of kept my competitive edge, I suppose, because I didn't want to look bad, and I wanted to be the best I could be.
Of course, although there is a price to pay, right, for doing more solo performance. Is that yes, you're accountable to your performance, but the potential challenge is that you're a bit more of a lone wolf. So you don't have a team per se that can give you that support and that energy, which sometimes I hear a lot of footballer or rugby player really thrive from. How did you manage that?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I played football and I also played rugby. And there was
Oh,
times
there you
where,
go.
yeah, I played rugby. I played everything, to be honest.
What have
But
you not played, Andy? Maybe we should ask that question.
golf.
Exactly which sport have you not
I tried
done?
golf once, and I decided never again because I was useless. But there was times where I would play a game of football, and I'd play really well or really bad, and my team would play the opposite, and we won or lost, and it really frustrated me. It really annoyed me. So yes, when you're out on the start line in athletics, like I said, if you have a good race, you win. If you have a bad race, you lose. And I like that. I like the cutthroat kind of result process of that. And it kept me going. It kept me always wanting to be as good as I could be because I didn't want to look bad on the start line or the end of a race. And it's kind of what's kept me focused throughout my life, I suppose, because I like to put myself out there, and I like to be successful, but I don't want that to be that success off the back of somebody else. I want that to be my
Mm,
success, something that I can say, well, you know what, I did that, I put everything into that, and I got the results, and
mm.
that's what kind of really keeps me excited, keeps me going now.
And speaking about winning and speaking about sometimes also losing, which is a natural part of any sports, how do you cultivate a mindset of chasing the win, but also handling potential losses gracefully?
You always have good times and bad times, and you do in athletics. You can't always produce the goods when you need to. There is times where it doesn't go to plan, but I learned very quickly, and especially like I said in athletics, because I was accountable. I can't do that again. I have to be better next race, next competition, and that's what I did. I kept trying to get better and better, but there were times where it didn't go well, and I would I would take that on the chin and I would say, right, that's a bad one, dust it off my shoulders, get back out there and start again. And I wouldn't dwell on a bad performance. It was done. It was dusted. It was finished. You know, there might have been a reason for that performance. An injury or something or other. And I just tried to make sure that I learned from my mistakes and didn't make those same mistakes again.
Has there ever been a time when that was harder than another time?
Yeah, I mean, there's times when I've been on the start line in an Olympic Games and I knew that I wasn't 100%. I'd not had a good training run. I'd had certain little injuries, little niggles along the way. So although physically I knew I wasn't in shape, when I get out there, I'll always try and believe mentally, put myself in that stage where I'm unbeatable. That's how I try and, I suppose, force the issue sometimes. Even though I know I'm not, I'll always try and believe that I am ready to run my best.
Of course. And how did you do that, Andy? Did you work with coaches? Did you work with sports psychologists? What was your support system to get into that resilient mindset, that champion's mindset?
I did see a sports psychologist for a while, but what I found I learned the most from was my bad performances. They're
Mm,
they're the reason that I got better. I did learn from my mistakes. I didn't want the same things to happen again and again. And I went to probably 3 or 4 different championships before I even made out of the initial heat stage, before I made it to a semi-final. And mentally, it's very difficult going to these big championships when you've got 50, 60, 100,000 people in the stadium, and knowing you have to produce the goods. And sometimes, when I was younger and I was going to these championships, I didn't sometimes believe I belonged there. I was a little fish in a big pond, and it took a few of these competitions before I realised that I did belong there and I was good enough. And again, it was just kind of building my confidence and learning from the experience that I gained over the years at these competitions and making mistakes. And eventually, as soon as I went to one championships and I did well, every championships after that, I did well.
mm. I really want to see if we could get inside your mind a little bit. And perhaps could you take us back to a day where you remember what was your headspace like so that you could really keep that focus and that mindset?
Um, yeah, I mean, going into the European Championships when I won it, I knew that I was a potential gold medalist, and I believed I was good enough. Looking around the warm up area, I didn't see anybody that I didn't think I could beat. And, I had such huge confidence going into that championships. And even though some people may have been quicker than me throughout the year, I knew I could still beat these people. And I just continuously told myself that I was good enough and I can do this and I can win. No one here can beat me. And, when you start to talk to continuously run that through your mind, it becomes real life. You feel untouchable. You feel like a superhero. And I felt that. I was so in the zone. I was so focused for this race that I don't remember the race. I don't remember probably 5 minutes before the race. And I don't remember the first probably 2/3 of that race. I only remember the last probably 20 or 30 meters clicking into consciousness and thinking, don't make a mistake. Don't make a mistake. And, and I knew I was winning. But when you are so focused and you're so in that zone, it's a lot of athletes will tell you that they don't remember. They don't
Yeah.
remember the competition. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. Like, I wish I could remember because it was a great moment. And I watch it on TV and, it's like watching an out of body experience because I
Yeah.
was there, but I don't remember being there because I was so focused and so blinkered to achieving this gold medal. And that's what I did. I won the gold medal.
And I know you're describing this experience as bizarre, but what scientists show us when looking into the mind of athletes and gold medalists like yourself is that zone that you're describing, that's flow, right? That's being in your flow.
Yeah, exactly. I was in the flow. I was in the zone. The best way to describe it is an out of body experience. That's
Mm.
me. But, and I know I was there, but I can't describe to you what I felt at that time. I can just tell you what I knew before that. And I knew before that I was so ready and I was prepared. Physically, I was in the best shape of my life. Mentally, I felt unbeatable. And all I had to do, people say, good luck, but really you don't need luck. All you need to do is execute what you do on a daily basis in
Mm.
training. And I knew that if I reproduced what I was doing on a daily basis in training, then no one would beat me. So all I had to do was do what I did on a day every day and just do it on that one day. And that's exactly what I did. And that comes with, having a confidence and the preparation in my training methods and my training setup to reproduce what is good enough on a daily basis. And then once that becomes your norm, it's just reproducing it when you need to do it on that one day. It's like revising for an exam. I was rubbish at maths, but I revised and revised and revised, and I ended up getting a B in my GCSEs, which for me was very good. But without that kind of confidence going into the exam and the work that I did, I would never have achieved that result. And it's the same with athletics.
And could you perhaps walk us through some of your sequencing? So, when working with athletes, one thing that I really love to look at and analyze is what I like to call your sequence for success, right? Those things that you do, the practice, the rep, the habits, the micro habits, the food that you consume, the way you sleep, the way you do your day to day, the way you recover, the way you get a massage, like those little things that are actually hugely important to that day, to getting you that result. Can you maybe take us through your sequence of success?
Yeah, to be a successful athlete, you've got to be selfish, and you had to have a good partner, an understanding partner, and luckily I did. Because I was gone a lot of the year. I was traveling all around the world, either to competitions or to training. When I was in the country, mentally, I'm always thinking about training, always thinking about a race. I'm always there. It's very tough to switch off. I mean, fortunately, I had a daughter quite young when I was 23. So that enabled me to switch off and forget about athletics. But, as soon as she went to bed, then it's always there. It's always in my mind. I'm always thinking about it and preparing myself and what am I going to do better and how can I be better? And I see to be successful at anything is it's a jigsaw. There's lots of different pieces of this jigsaw that you need to put together to create your masterpiece. From quality sleep, you know, my wife, luckily, she when the baby was born, we had two separate beds, and she would look after the baby during the night, and I look after the day when I could. The understanding. She was very, very good for me. Put it that way. She helped me get the best quality sleep I could possibly get, because you need to. And food wise, again, I like my pizza, I like my chocolate, but again, that's my fuel. Is it's my battery power. So if I'm feeding myself with you know food that's not nutritious, then I'm not going to perform. You're like a racing car. You have to put best quality fuel in to get the best quality out. And training wise, I would never leave any stones unturned. I would train with my coach, and then I would go and do my own training later on in the afternoon, little bits that I felt like I needed. And my coach was fine with that. He wasn't, it wasn't something that we hadn't talked about, but there was just bits that we worked in partnership very well. So he understood that there was parts that I felt that I needed to take care of, that he didn't need to be there. So, I felt like I literally did everything I could possibly do to get to where I got to in my career, by leaving no stones unturned, and just having that focus that nothing was going to get in my way and nobody was going to get in my way. And again, it is a selfish belief, but you ask every single athlete who's done well, they'll tell you the exact same thing.
Well, I'm a firm believer that mastery comes from a bit of mix between passion and obsession. And I think what you're describing is precisely that. To master your craft at any discipline, athleticism or else, you have to be both passionate, committed, and quite obsessive.
100%. I mean, I didn't use the word obsessive, but you're absolutely right. It is an
Oh,
obsession. 100% is an obsession, but it's an obsession that was also the way that I paid my bills. I bought my daughter nappies and food and so on. It was my career. So when you can combine your passion with your career, you know, it is an obsession, but it's an obsession that it's not an inconvenience. I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was a great, great life. And I'm not sad that it's ended. I'm very happily retired. But there is moments that I look back and I'm like, that was kind of cool, actually.
well, can you take us there maybe? Can you take us to some of your proudest achievement as an athlete, as an Olympian, representing Team GB, like all those incredible achievements? Could you perhaps pick a couple for us that would be your most significant ones?
Yeah, I mean, when I went to the Beijing Olympics in 2008, I underperformed. And there was no reason I underperformed. I just didn't produce what I should have done on the day. And it happened. And because of that, the following year, the national governing body for athletics in Britain, they cut my funding. And although financially it's a help, it means you can't have access to the medical care that an athlete does need. Regular physio appointments, chiropractors, doctors. This is something that we see a lot of. And also they'll pay for trips to go warm weather training to wherever in the world. So when you cut from funding, it makes life very, very difficult, and literally you're on your own 2 feet. So the fact that my governing body lost faith in me, and that they told me I was too old and too slow to make a final, that was their argument. So to win, come the following year and win the Europeans and the Commonwealths, and then the following year to win the World Championships, it was so nice to prove them wrong. It was nice to prove myself right. So that's one of my, I suppose, it has to be one of my proudest moments. And another one would be competing in London Games. The London Olympics was special, not only for the athletes, but just everybody in the country. It gripped the country. So to be a part of it, and I lived in London, so I'd stay in the village, and then the following day after my race, I got the tube home, and everyone was like, "Oh, I've just seen you running the Olympics," and I was like, "That's weird." And it was, it was a crazy time. Unfortunately, I didn't run as well as I should have done again, but this was due to injuries. But just so proud to represent my country in 3 games. Not a lot of athletes get the opportunity to run in 1 games, so to run in 3, I'm super proud of that.
And you've spoken very briefly, but you touched upon it, injuries, right? They are part of an athlete's life. We've just heard your highlights. I was wondering if we could also perhaps take a moment to have a think about lowlights, moments that were particularly challenging. How did you overcome the physical pain and the mental pain as well of injury, considering that, that obsession that you had to
Mhm.
succeed, to win? How was that for you?
It's very tough. There was one time where I think it was 2007 or so on, and I was in a competition for Great Britain, and it was on TV, and I pulled my hamstring during the race, and we
Mm.
had a big World Championships coming up in a few weeks, and I was desperate to do well. So when that injury happens, you're in a really dark place. It's how I paid my bills. It's how it's who I am. It's what I do. So when I can't do what I want to do, or what I'm designed to do, it's very, very difficult. So that you always have a couple of days where you're feeling sorry for yourself. You start to question life. But then I think for me, the bonus was having my daughters there. Again, gave me that reason to stop dwelling on this, get yourself fit, and get back into it. So that's always what I did. I would always then go and see the correct medical attention that I needed if I could. And then just start trying to build back to fitness and get back out there to the competition. But it's very, very difficult when you're injured, especially I had Achilles surgery, and in fact I had 3 Achilles surgeries, and there was times I didn't think I was going to run again, and both times I actually managed to get back onto the track and compete in major championships. So I think because of my mental resilience, that's what got me back on the track. I think a lot of people would have gone, I think I'll just call it a day there and leave it. But I couldn't let a, an injury determine the end of my career. I had to choose when that ended, because otherwise it just wouldn't have sat well with me mentally.
Mm. And how do you think you did that in terms of cultivating that resilient mindset? It sounds like you really managed to overcome hugely challenging and painful injuries. What was that like for you in your mind and in your body in terms of pain threshold and
Yeah, but
hardship?
obviously it was very difficult. Pain wise, I ruptured my Achilles, and I had Achilles surgery on both of my Achilles probably 3-4 weeks after the London Olympics. And obviously, you're thinking for a minute, that's it, the end of your career. So you're struggling. But then I was desperate not to let an injury rob me of when I wanted to retire. I was desperate for that, because I know athletes who didn't have that choice,
Mm.
and they've always had regrets, always. And I didn't want to be that guy. I couldn't be that guy, and it was difficult. But I think again, I refer back to my daughters. By the time I got to London Olympics, I had 3 daughters by that point, and I wanted them to watch me run. I wanted them to be able to go into the playground the next day and kids to say, "I saw your dad on TV," and that's what. Towards the end of my career, that was more important to me than my goals. It was for them,
Of course.
and it was brilliant because that happened. They came to the Olympics. They watched me run. The next 2 years, they'd watch me run on TV, and their friends would watch me. And, they got playground bragging rights, and that it meant a lot to me. That was it's nice to be able to kind of give your kids something that other kids maybe don't have that privilege of having.
And is there a part of you, however big or small that part might be, that hopes one or two or all of your daughters will become athletes?
Well, do you know, I've got one daughter that likes athletics. The other ones, they're not caring about it one bit. So, but I didn't want to push them into it because I did it. I want them to find what they love, and then I will back them 100%. So I've got one daughter that she's a singer. She loves singing, and she's quite good. I'm not just going to say she's quite good. Like, she genuinely is pretty good. So I'll back her all day long. And my other daughter, she's just started athletics and she loves it. And she said, "Dad, I want to be like you." And when she said that, it
Ah,
just broke my heart. So she's 12. So
yes.
I take her to the track, and she trains and she enjoys it. and it's brilliant. So yeah, it's I don't want to push them. I want them to find it, and like I say, one of them has found it. So maybe she's the next Olympian. Who knows?
Would you ever consider being her dedicated coach?
Listen, if I was her coach, she'd not do a thing. I tell her to tidy a room, she's like, nope. So if I tell her to go and do the hurdles, she'd be like, nope. So
Nope.
I have to give it to another coach, and I just
Find
keep,
another coach.
yeah, I just keep my mouth zipped. I'm just a spectator. That's all I am.
Well, look, we will all be following your daughter's progress and rooting for her success.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you've just mentioned coaches. I was wondering whether you could take us through your ecosystem. What were your relationships like with your coaches, if you had any, and what were the most significant moments through being coach, or pivotal moments where coaching played a significant part in your athletic career?
So I moved to London when I was 21, and I joined a group of athletes coached by a guy called Lloyd Cowan. And I didn't know anything about Lloyd, but I stayed with Lloyd from the moment I joined in London to the moment I retired. So for 12, 13 years, Lloyd took me through everything, all my highs, all my lows. He was there for everything. Unfortunately, he actually passed away during COVID, but he was my dad. He was my other dad, my second dad. He was there for all the highs, all the great moments on the track. He was there. Whenever I was feeling low because of something happened, he was there. So the relationship we had was more than just a coach. He was somebody that came to my wedding. I've been to his house. I've been to see all his family knew me. We had such a special relationship and a special bond. And I suppose, a lot of athletes, they kind of flit around from different coaches to see what works best. But I never did. I always stayed with Lloyd. And, if I was running to this day, I would still be with Lloyd. Having somebody like that to share those moments with, and who completely understands me, and I understand him. It wasn't a dictatorship. We worked together, and that's what worked well. It won us medals.
How much tough love did he give you?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, all the time. That's the thing. He was a coach. He was my coach. So if he told me that, that run was rubbish, do it again, or go and do this, go and run that. I did it. I had to do it. That was. I listened to him. I did what he told me to do. Doesn't mean I liked it. I was happy with it, but it's the respect that I had for him meant that if he said to do it, it was done.
I was curious about that relationship because I know that you now work with busy executives in the corporate world. You've shifted from being an athlete to now helping busy executives. And the reason I was really curious about this important relationship that you fostered with your coach, namely Lloyd, was the fact that, at least in my experience in the corporate world, and I would love to hear your take on it, there is a lot more resistance to coaching, right? So, you have this wonderfully successful, hyper intelligent, highly accomplished executives that are on top of their game work-wise, but they have all kinds of struggle, as we all do, part of human experience, whether it may be sleep or nutrition or weight. And yet they show a huge amount of resistance to the idea of coaching because it's almost a semi-admission of weakness, which we both know is not the case. But I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about that and perhaps draw that parallel between the importance of coaching and the fact that not only is it not a display of weakness, but it's a fundamental part of the peak performance equation.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of very busy, very wealthy clients, and although they are at their very top of their game, like you say, there is resistance. But bottom line is, they're very, very good at what they do. I'm not very good at what they do, and they're not very good at what I do. And once we have that conversation, I think my background helps break down those barriers of what I can do for people. Once I tell people that I've been to the Olympics, I've done this, I've lived this life my whole career, they start to understand that actually maybe this guy can actually help me. And it's what I've seen from very busy executives is that, yes, they struggle with time, they're stressed, poor sleep, poor diet, they don't have time for anything. But once I sit them down and discuss and tell them the potential issues that they could have from obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, the ailments is endless. And although the plan that I've created, the Everyday Olympian plan, is designed to physically get you into shape, but it's about helping the potential for these illnesses of the development. And with this exercise, that I can plan a session whether you're in your house or whether you're in the gym. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's about being healthier. It is a fitness plan, yes, getting you into shape, but it's about sharpening your mind, and re-energizing you, and in turn that will make people more productive, in their own line of work.
And what are the biggest struggles that you see those business executives face?
It's always time. It's always time. For me, there's always half an hour in a day where you can do something. There is half an hour. And if it's not, if you are struggling for that half an hour, 3 or 4 days a week, well, let's try and do it 2 days a week. Let's do what we can. So that's how I kind of make my bespoke plans so that it fits in with your life. A lot of my clients, they're traveling off to Hong Kong, Singapore, they're over here, they're over there. But that's no reason, that's no excuse. So the plans I make, you can do it in your hotel room, and whether you can spare me 20 minutes, whether you can spare me an hour, it's all bespoke to that person's needs.
Hmm. And do you see that these client profiles have a tendency to neglect recovery?
100%, 100%. I think a lot of time, a lot of time, busy kind of executives, they're not in it for the long game. They think they are, but again, my plans are 4 weeks, 12 weeks, or 24-week plans. And a lot of the time, the 12-week plan, that's the time you need to really create good, solid changes and change people's patterns in their thought process. But it's very difficult to get people into that rhythm, when they are so busy. And that's what it's all about. To make changes, you need that consistency in your life. And that is one of the main problems that I find with very busy executives. It struggle to find consistency. But like I
Mm.
say, half an hour a day, whether it's early in the morning or late at night, that's what can make a change.
Hmm. And would you say that this idea of consistency is a big part of having an Olympian's mindset?
You have to be. You can't do 2 days of good work and then 3 days of average work and then a day of great work and then a day of no work. You have to have a level of consistency. With my athletics, I didn't see it as something I wanted to do. I did it as something I had to do. I got up
Sure.
and I went to work. That was my thought process. If it was raining, if it was snowing, I don't care. Like, I'm going to
Mm.
get wet, I'm going to get cold, but I will get it done. And that's kind of where my kind of bulletproof mindset of my plan comes into it. You just get it done, regardless of the situation of the day, the weather, what's going on. We just get it done. And once we get it done, that's where the consistency comes. And following that, the results come. It's pretty simple, but that is the hardest part, is to keep people consistent.
Even when they don't feel like it. That's something that I
Yeah.
hear a lot from my client, but I don't feel like it. Well, the point is you have to do it even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it.
This is the difference between an Olympian and a non-Olympian, because every Olympian will tell you, I don't feel like it, but I still did it. And I still did
Mm.
it to the very best I could do. Like I say, there was
Mm.
days where it was snowing and I'd go on the track and I'd shovel snow off the track to create a space, because I was going to train that day, whether it was, I don't care if it was snowing, I will get it done. But, if you ask an athlete who does it, who competes just for a little bit of fun, they probably would have gone to the track, saw there was snow, and they would have gone home. And that's the difference between being success. It's going that extra step.
And what resources did you tap into to get that? level of resilience and stubbornness in a good way, right? That level of I'm doing it no matter what. What was that? Was that a voice in your head that you tapped into? Was this?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I had a taste of success early, and I wanted that
Mm,
again. And again, it falls back onto that point of being accountable for my performance. I knew I was going to race, so I cannot step on that start line knowing I'm underprepared. I can't do that. And that's what got me through it. That's what got me mentally to where I was, because I just had to be the best version of myself all the time with whatever I did. And it worked. It made me quite successful at it.
and what about sacrifices and lifestyle hygiene along the way? What I would love to tap into specifically is the choice that you might have made along the way. Whenever I've worked with elite athletes, they would typically be the kind that chose not to be going out with their mates to a pub and drinking. They'll be the kind that will not choose to spend their weekend crashing on a sofa, but go to a recovery clinic instead and get a deep tissue massage or do things that would promote their recovery. This idea of perform like a champion and recover like one. Can you tell us a little bit about that, the sort of recovery strategy of a champion, but also the sacrifices that need to be made along the way?
Yeah, it's a lifestyle to be an Olympic athlete. It's a lifestyle, and it's all consuming. And that comes back to being selfish. I had to do everything I could, everything I could to be the best. I mean, I was very fortunate to be funded by the National Lottery, apart from the year when they cut me. So when it comes to recovery, I would always make sure that I would have a massage 2 or 3 times a week. I'd use an ice bath. To be fair, when I was running the kind of the newer age recovery methods weren't quite as prevalent back then. It was a case of having a bit of a massage, or again an ice bath, and that was pretty much it. But I'd go home and I'd stretch, and I'd rest up, and I wouldn't be going running around. Again, weekends, you're right. I didn't go on my first lads holiday until I was 34, and then I made up for it. Don't get me wrong, I made up for it. I went to Ibiza, and oh my days, it was an absolute shambles. I missed out on a lot. I missed out on holidays. I missed out on my friends' parties, people getting married, trips here, holidays there. But it was a choice that I made, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it one bit. Yeah, it was. I suppose it was difficult because there was times I'd like to have gone out and had some fun, but I knew I had a race coming up, or I knew I had a hard training session the next day, and if I turned up to the training session and I was hungover, Lloyd would have killed me. He would have killed me and made me do twice as much. So I couldn't do it. I had to. You have to live that lifestyle. If
That's
you
right.
half do it, you'll get half the results.
That's it. So how do you feel then when you see a business executive that has, let's say, a super important pitch or a super important client meeting, a board meeting, a court case, whatever industry that might be, and the night before such a key performance, which would be the equivalent of a race in your world, they will binge on TV, drink a bottle of wine, and do all those things that we know actually really harm our sleep, our recovery, our performance. How do you run that parallel between that idea of elite performance?
I tell all my clients again, if they have something to prepare for, then you have to have a clear run to it. You have to be, as fresh as you can possibly be. Put everything into it. Clear your mind. Put all your energies into one focus, into one goal. And once you do that, you feel energized. You feel sharp. Your mindset is completely different. And I've got clients who, like you mentioned, had big occasions and they've had a bottle of wine. And I said, "How do you feel?" I didn't feel there. I wasn't all there. I was like, you just want to shake them sometimes. But I think again, once you kind of beat into them an Olympic mindset, what it takes to be the very best, eventually it starts to become part of their life, and then results come. That's what they become a better version of themselves, and Even, it's not just about being an athlete. It's about in the business world too. You have to give absolute everything to achieve the best results. It's as simple as that.
Mm. And speaking about achieving the best result, how translatable do you think this concept of hitting your personal best in athleticism is relatable to business executive to hit their own PBs in the business world?
So what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that bit?
Well, I mean that we all want to win in one way or another, right? In our
Mm.
different professions. So to what extent do you find that your clients fuel their motivation to get the next best result, right? In the same way that an athlete would want to achieve a better
Yeah,
time or win the next game. How do your client fuel that motivation to want to achieve more? And along that way, is there a risk of them burning out because they always want to achieve more and more and more?
I think as an athlete, you set yourself a goal, an achievable goal. Once you set an achievable goal and reach that, you set yourself another achievable goal. If you set an achievable goal or maybe an unachievable goal that's a little bit too far down the line, a little bit too much too soon, then yes, you can feel mentally, physically burnt out. So for me, I always try and set small goals, small increments, something that you can achieve and you can go, you know what? I did that. I feel good about myself. And then we set another goal. And once you've achieved that, again, too much too soon or a too big a target too soon, they'll feel deflated. And then from trying to achieve something that's a little bit too far in front of them, that's where, you can burn yourself out, mentally, physically burn yourself out. So for me, just small steps all the time.
How problematic is burnout in the sporting world, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I felt mentally burnt out towards the end of my career. It's why I retired. I I didn't care if the guy next to me or this guy next to me beat me on the start line. I was mentally fatigued. I was very drained from having to produce my absolute best week in, week out for the last 10 years. I was ready to have some normality in my life where I wasn't living out of a suitcase, where my finances relied on beating this guy or that guy or being the very best. It was very demanding mentally. And I was ready for that time where I could just be normal again. And, but it's like that in the business world too. It really is.
And do you see a lot of burnout in your business executives client?
Yeah. Yeah. You see regularly, you see people feeling deflated, just feel worn out. And this is why I believe that exercise can counter that burnout. Obviously, mental burnout is different from physical burnout. Sitting in front of a laptop and you've got numbers flying around your head all day long, you are going to be burnt out. You're going to be fatigued, mentally fatigued. By exercising short bursts, short amounts, you can do 30 minutes every 2 or 3 days, something like that. It just re-energizes you, refreshes you. It can give somebody a fresh look on life, a fresh target, I suppose. Yeah, it's a tough one, but you do see it. I see it very regularly, and it's I try to talk to them. I try to talk to my clients about this bulletproof mindset. I keep going back to this bulletproof mindset, but it's about these small steps. And I said this again. A lot of my clients are very successful. They've got a lot on their shoulders, and they don't like to delegate. Everything is them. Everything is on them. Their whole world is in front of their laptop. And this is where the burnout comes from. If I can give them something that breaks them from that cycle, something that can just refresh them a little bit, and that can re-energize you back to being the best version of yourself again, then for me, that's why I'm doing this, just to try and
Mm.
mentally re-energize my clients, as well as physically making them healthier too.
And how much did those tools, building that bulletproof mindset, help you navigate your own mental burnout?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had this mindset of always trying to be the best version of myself. If I set a challenge for myself, that's my challenge. I'm not going to not do it. I'm going to do that, because I set myself realistic challenges. When I was a young boy, I might have set myself very, very large challenges, but now I set myself small increments and achievable challenge, and that's why I'd never deviate from my path. That's what I'm going to do. And once I've achieved that, I'm going to go and try and achieve something else, and so on and so on. And that's the mindset that I suppose keeps me sharp, keeps me fresh, keeps me pointing in the right direction. I suppose
Mm.
that makes
Mm.
sense.
Of course. Is there anything that you would do differently if you could go back in time, just at that time before you felt that mental burnout, having the tools and the knowledge that you've acquired now as a coach, as a fitness expert? Would you go back and change anything?
I don't think I would. No.
No.
Um, that's why I'm so happily retired. Um,
Blissfully retired.
yeah. No, I don't miss it. I don't miss. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy being a spectator. I enjoy being a fan, but I don't miss being on that start line anymore because
Mm.
the analogy I use is if you get a towel, you dip it in water and you rinse that towel out. I rinsed out every single last drop of water, which is my talent. I rinsed out every little bit I could possibly get out of my career. That's how I feel. I don't think I could have got any more. Maybe injuries took a year or two off me, but I still had a massive innings compared to most other athletes. So I
Mm.
can't look back and think in a negative way. I can only take positives from my career.
Mm. And here comes the Olympian mindset in action.
There you go. I don't even think about it sometimes. It just seems to happen.
It's second nature. It's
It
who you
is.
are, right?
Yeah, it's just been part of me since I was a youngster, I suppose.
I'm really fascinated by the work that you do to help these busy executives now overcome some of the deep, dark struggles that we all see day to day, be it cardiovascular health, be it weight gain, be it poor nutrition, be it even high cholesterol, as you mentioned. Can you perhaps walk us through what you see most often, and how much do you think that's correlated to sedentary lifestyle and lack of fitness discipline?
I think it's all combined. It's
Mm.
all combined. I think 90% of my clients are overweight, sedentary lifestyle. They sit in front of a desk. They're here all day long. That's it, all day long. That's their life. They don't move. If you look at how many steps do they take on a daily basis, they commute from the tube station to their office block and back. When they go home, they've got a taxi waiting or they're driving. The amount of steps they're doing is minimal. Their diet comes from whatever comes into the office, a food van or a snack van or whatever. So they don't take care of what they need to take care of. My plan, the diet I plan is, it's very healthy. It's very nutritious. It's not trying to starve people. It's trying to give them the right foods. And I like chocolate. So I always make sure that in my food plan, I'm going to have chocolate when I want it. And that's what I do to my clients. The problems that I see from these guys is high stress levels, poor sleep, alcohol, and all these combined, obesity is a big one. And then from that, that's where your high blood pressure, your high cholesterol all comes from. It's all combined, and small changes. I don't want to ask people to give me an hour a day because it's unreasonable. It's not going to happen. But if you give me half an hour a day, I can help make those changes to get you fitter, to get you healthier, to try and make you live longer. And this is not even, this is not like a sales pitch. You genuinely will live longer, and is that not important? For me, I understand these people are very, very busy. Their work is their life. But I've got kids. I don't want to be an overweight dad who can't run around chasing my kids in the park on a weekend. Like, I want to do that. That's the most important thing in the world to me, is to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously it's priorities, and I understand that. But people do need to make changes. People need to make changes not only for themselves to be the best person of themselves, but for their families.
Mm-hmm. And what are the most common symptoms in your in your world that you see in your line of work of this lack of movement? I think you describe it so well. Most people nowadays, executives, different industry, spend their life on their desktop, their laptop, no movement, no steps, as you mentioned. What can be the consequences?
Well, I mean, obviously, as we spoke, the health risks, but posture. I see that people's posture is terrible. Everyone's haunched forward like this, and their back is curved like this, and somebody who's 6 foot when they've been ironed out, at work at your desk, you're like 5'2", and that's what it is. And from that, you're going to get back issues. Hamstrings don't work. There's so many knock-on issues with being sedentary and sitting there. And like I say, it only takes a small bit of exercise to get things moving, to keep the body active, to keep the body working at the rate it should work. It doesn't take huge amount of work to do this. But like I say, that's why I make my plans bespoke, so that it can fit in with your daily life. If you've got half an hour lunch break and you can't leave the office, it's no excuse. I'll do you a workout in your office. That's how it is.
Yes, yes. I call those movement snacking, right? Instead of snacking on food, you snack on movement.
Yeah, but it works. You
It
know,
does.
I always tell people, if you're in the office and you're on the fifth floor, walk up the stairs. Don't get the elevator. Any opportunity you can to move the body, take it. Don't take the lift. Don't take the elevator. Don't be lazy. Just walk up the stairs. Take that opportunity, and it's little things like that can make a difference.
And how much does your previous experience as a bodybuilder helps you to have this deep understanding of the body's need and requirement and the body's function overall? Because one thing that I really admire about bodybuilders is their incredible understanding of the body.
Yeah, I mean, I've been personal training for a long time anyway. And when I retired from athletics, yeah, I went into bodybuilding because I wanted this. I needed another focus for my training. And I thought I knew a lot when it came to PTing. But when I came to bodybuilding and actually getting onto the stage and understanding how to manipulate the body to get the very best out of it, it does give you a really deep understanding of how to manipulate certain situations and how to manipulate the body to get where it wants to get or get where you want it to get. It's quite amazing, to be honest. Like I say, I genuinely thought I knew a fair bit, but that just gave me a whole new spectrum.
What are your biggest lessons from bodybuilding?
As an athlete, I would eat healthily, but I wouldn't count my carbs. I wouldn't count my proteins and my fats. I just had what I wanted, as long as it was pretty healthy. And obviously, as a bodybuilder, you need to know exactly what you're eating, when the macros, the carbs, the proteins and fats. You need to know what you're eating and how many of those in order to put on mass or to cut down. So that kind of understanding of food, it was new to me, and it's amazing because obviously when you do it yourself and you see it in action, it's quite amazing. Actually, it's quite phenomenal. It's like when I was bulking, so I was putting on size and eating loads of calories, and then every week I'd take off calories, and it was almost like I could see my body getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and the body fat going. And it's like unwrapping a present at Christmas, and all of a sudden you're like, look, you're like, whoa, I'm in good shape here. And it was, yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
Do you think there are any misconceptions about bodybuilding?
Yeah, of course. I think people think you have to be on steroids to get big. You have to be on steroids to get into the very best shape. But that's not true. There's different federations where you can do clean or you can do whatever you want to do. So you can get into ridiculous shape with or without steroids. So that's probably a misconception.
Hmm. So now going back to what you do now with this amazing program to have this everyday Olympian mindset, how does your combined past experience of being a bodybuilder and being an Olympian help you serve busy executive? If you could give us a summary.
It's everything. It's everything I've done, everything I've learned, everything I've worked hard for, packaged to a normal person. And I don't mean that I'm a normal person as well, but I've done, I've been quite successful, and I want people to understand how they can do it, how they can be successful in their own field. So I'm just trying to take a little bit of what I've done, package it up, and then spread it to the masses. That's the plan anyway.
Do you believe that people can fall in love with moving?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I never thought of it like that. But yeah, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you? You
Well, I hear this on a daily basis from my clients. I don't really like it. I
don't
hear
like
this a lot.
moving.
Yes.
Who doesn't like moving? You
Many
send them my
people.
way.
I shall, and I will. Well, look, just perhaps I'm going to go a little deeper into that, but the notion of doing something effortful when your efforts are all directed to your intellect and your profession. So, think about it like a big cup of efforts that you have to give in one day. And if all of your efforts have been solely focused on that intellectual success and that professional career, then by the end of the day, you're completely drained. And maybe there was a part of you that was going to sign up to a class and go to the gym and do a run and go to yoga. But actually, by the end of the day, you're so completely depleted, you're so completely exhausted that you have no willpower left to go and move. You just want to rest and
My argument to that would be you do it first thing in the morning. So
yes.
I don't want to train in the evening. I still don't. I still don't like it. Even though all my races, all my competitions could have been 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. But when I trained, or when I train now, I get up, I get it done, then I start my day. And I don't start my day until it's done. But once I do start my day, immediately I feel happier. I feel re-energized for the day. The worst thing is doing a whole day's work thinking I'm going to train later. I've got to train later. I've got to train
Mm.
later because you've got to be very switched on and very mentally tough, to do that. But I would say to anybody else, get up half an hour earlier, get your workout done. That's it, done for the day, and you're good to go.
I believe in this wholeheartedly. I call this eat the frog. It's not me saying it. I've taken it from a book by Brian Tracy. So he called this book Eat the Frog because it's the one thing that you're most likely to not want to do all day. So for
Yeah.
busy executives, it would be working out. So you do it so that everything else will be seemingly easier for the rest of the day. If you've eaten the frog in the morning, then surely the rest of the day can't get much worse than that.
Exactly. That's exactly right. You get up, get your training done, start your day feeling good, feeling energized, feeling fresh, knowing that you put your rent in for your body for that day. You've done your bit for your body, and then after that, let's go and work on the mind. Let's go and work on the career.
Well, at this point, Andy, I feel like I have to make a confession. As a recovered workaholic lawyer, I spent a very big part of my life neglecting movement. And
Mm.
it's only when I suffered through insomnia diagnosis, through chronic back pain, that I realized something had to change. You hit that wall and then you make a change. And, looking back at before I started my career as a lawyer, I was a very, very active person. I had all sorts of activities and I loved movement. But then I spent all those years literally just glued at my computer and at my desk and loving it, by the way. I was completely
Mhm.
obsessed by my career. But it took getting to that point of injury and diagnosis to realize something had to change. And for me, it was my back and my insomnia. But what I've done with my coaches that I hired to really help me is habit stack. For me, that's been life changing, meaning that I've learned the art of not trusting myself. My default mode of operation is still work first. That's my type
Yeah.
A. I'm being completely candid here. I'm being honest. I am wired that way, but I've learned that it doesn't always serve me. So knowing that and going through that self-awareness and self-development with my fitness coach, I've learned techniques as simple as putting my running shoes in front of my coffee machine in the morning. I know that might sound really weird, but in the kitchen, you put them in such a way that you would stumble upon them before you get to your first cup of coffee, because you're
Yeah.
never going to forget your coffee, but you are definitely or most likely going to find an excuse not to go on your run, right? So I do little tricks like that, I play with myself and do gamify my fitness routine. I was wondering if you could give us your take on that and give us some little practical tips and tricks on how to habit stack fitness for anyone listening that can relate to how I used to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've nailed it. To be honest, with the trainers by the coffee machine, that's the best one. I mean, that's something that I tell my clients to do as well. But it's just I suppose giving people that little nudge, that little hint. You've got to do this. You've got to do this. You've got to get your training done. You have to get your half an hour in to yourself before you start your day. But no, that's exactly the same as what I would do. Just same. Put some trainers by the coffee cup. It works. It works.
And do you have a direction around the importance of not doing only cardio, or not doing only strength, or not doing only stability? And the reason I mention that is, for example, just looking back at the way I approach fitness at the beginning of my journey, I had a tendency to do a lot of stability and flexibility. So I would do a lot of yoga, but I neglected strength quite a lot, and I was not doing a lot of strength training. And then I realized that I was drawn to cardio and started to neglect stretching and stability.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you're tapping into one and you get a little bit obsessive. I definitely did that. I fell in love with yoga, and then suddenly I became a yoga teacher and I had to do all the yoga qualification, and then realize, okay, but now I've completely stopped running. So you go all in for one discipline and then you neglect another, and you start to pay the price with potential injuries. So I was wondering if you can give us your take on the pillars of fitness. Would you agree that it's that element of cardio, strength, and stability, flexibility? Do you have another vision for how you should have that ecosystem?
No, I mean, I would always recommend lifting weights. So not only is it obviously helping strengthen the muscles, strengthening your bones as well. You lift weights, that helps with your everyday life. You don't really quite realize that if you work in particular, say, ab movements or particular leg movements, that's going to help you walking up the stairs. That's going to help you carrying your kid or carrying your shopping bags. It helps life. It helps strengthen the body and strengthen the mind. Cardio is a fantastic tool. It's a tool that I would use where if a client said to me, I want to lose weight, I'm still going to give them the majority of the exercise is going to be lifting weights. But then we use that as a tool as and when necessary. Unless you're a runner. If you're obviously a runner, then you're going to hit more cardio, but I would still never neglect lifting weights purely because it's going to help, again, strengthen the muscles in the legs, strengthen the muscles in wherever you're training and the bones. Stretching is always going to be important anyway. It's not something that I do loads of, or I put loads into my clients' programs purely because time. Now, if they've got time, brilliant. Sit at home, stretch, cup of tea, whatever, watching the TV. If you've got time, just have a little stretch. But for me, the main bulk of their workouts will always come from functional lifting weights. And then, like I say, cardio would always be a tool that we'd use as and when necessary, just to push on their plan that little bit more.
And just to ask you one more question before we wrap up, do you see in your experience that when your clients start to lift weight and get stronger physically, that also improves their mental resilience?
Absolutely. And it also improves their self-belief, their mood. It's a stepping stone, like I mentioned earlier. When you see the weight increments go up, immediately that's a stepping stone, or something to tick off, and immediately they go, okay, brilliant. Now let's go to the next one. And that's what gives you that part of that bulletproof mindset that we've been talking about all day.
Thank you so much, Andy. I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about where our audience can connect with you to find out more about your incredible program, Everyday Olympian, and work with you.
So yeah, just go through my LinkedIn page. I've got Andy Turner Fitness on LinkedIn. You can get me on there. You can contact me via instant message. But yeah, that's where you'd find me.
Wonderful. Andy, could you give us with one word or phrase of wisdom, if you could summarize what an Olympian mindset is in one sentence? The floor is yours to end this show.
Motivation, dedication, sacrifice, and consistency. Put those 4 things together. That's the winning key.
You're a star. Andy, Thank you so much. I'm super grateful for your energy today, and I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time with me today and listening to this episode. Remember to subscribe so that you can receive weekly updates. And if today's message resonated with you, please remember to share it with a friend, a colleague, or a loved one who could really benefit from this episode.